Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Christian Reeve podcast. Today's guest is an author, artist, adventurer. He was based in South Korea, now he's back in the States. His name is Ryan Estrada. Welcome to the show. How you doing, man?
Great. Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. I've been looking forward to this show for a long time. You might actually be, no pressure, the most interesting guest I've ever had on the show. Because
Okay.
I always sit down and do a lot of research about my guests, and I was just going through it, and I was like, how is this possible? Like, this guy's like Indiana Jones or some shit. There's just like so much stuff that you've done, and I'm like, where do I even begin? Like,
Well, I've just done a lot of things and not worried about being particularly good at any of them. That's why I've most of my stories are interesting just because I've failed miserably at trying so many things that it makes an interesting story. So I guess that's the key. If you want to be interesting, just do a lot of really, really stupid things.
what do you think the stupidest thing you've ever done in your life is?
Oh, that's let me see. Probably even before the adventuring when I was in middle school. Probably that was the time I tried to make my own Halloween costume.
Okay.
And I decided, see, forever my aunt had made my Halloween costume every year, and one year she didn't. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, why didn't my aunt make it? My mom's like tries to break the news to me, Ryan, you're in middle school now. You're too old to go trick or treating. I'm like, oh no, I'm doing this myself. And so I had like a few hours to prepare my own costume. And I decided that in order, like, if I'm too grown up to be trick or treating now, I'm going to be like, make the scariest costume I can. And I decided to be an accident victim. And, and I said, make it look like I was in every accident possible. I made like fake tire tracks. I made like fake stab wounds. I had like a head wound mask. And then at the very end, I'm like, I'm almost done. It's missing something. And I decided what it needed was fire.
Oh my God.
And while the other ones were done with like paint and ketchup, this one I'm like, well, I mean, with fire, you got to use actual fire, right? And I decided I wanted to have a shirt that was just like kind of singed on the sleeves. And so like I got some fire, I got a cup of water, I found an old dry shirt of my dead grandfather's in the basement that had been like
Jesus.
dry for like 20 years. And I decided I'm just gonna singe the sleeve a little bit, douse it out with the water. But I decided this is the dumb part. I'm like, safety first. Trick or treating has come up. I don't want to get a cold, so I'm going to wear the shirt. And I just kind of pulled my arm out of the sleeve and just kind of took the lighter and went. And this shirt was so dry, it just went the entire shirt in flames. Uh, and then the other really, really stupid thing is that I didn't know what you're supposed to do when you're on fire. So I just kind of ran in circles, flapping my arm, literally fanning the flames. Uh,
Jeez.
and I'm like, as I'm doing, I'm trying to remember, like, what is there's a thing you're supposed to do. What is it? And then I remember stop, drop, and roll.
Yeah.
So I stopped, I dropped, and I rolled one time. They never said repeat. They should really put repeat in. I rolled one time and lay on the ground like, oh crap, that didn't work. I guess I'll just do this some more. And I ran around until eventually my mother came out, saw me, ripped the shirt off of me. My entire body looked like fried chicken. My hair had melted into one giant hair and took me to the hospital where I'm like, tick tock, doc, it's almost trick or treating time. You got to wrap this up quick. And they got me on all kinds of pain medication. And then,
Oh my God.
but I insisted we get home and go trick or treating. I made it to my neighbor's house, like 10 steps away, when I fainted on his porch and woke up the next day. And that's the dumbest thing I ever did. And I'm still wearing the Halloween costume because I still look like an accident victim.
Oh,
Third
damn.
degree burns.
Damn. Oh my God.
That's a pretty dumb thing.
Sounds like fun though. As messed up as that sounds. How much
Yeah,
how much did your hair stink?
pretty bad. Like the thing about the hair is that like it had all melted together, but like in a tri like it looked like a little like palm frond because it was all together. And when I pulled, it just kind of melted, like a big chunk of it just kind of came off all melty, and like I just threw it in the trash. It's so gross.
Since we're talking about just yeah, you nearly killing yourself, let's talk about near death experiences.
All right.
I've got a bunch here from the show notes that you
Mhm.
sent over, and I even just reading back my notes, I can't believe this shit. Um, okay, let's start at the beginning. So you barely survived being eaten by lions in the Mara. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, what?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So after school, I started traveling, and I just kind of really enjoyed traveling, and especially I enjoyed having new experiences and
Right.
not knowing what to expect. And I had had enough already near death experiences that worked out fine that I realized like I kind of enjoy when things the unexpected happens because like if something great happens, that's great. If something horrible happens, I'm gonna have a story to tell. I'm gonna be telling it on podcasts forever. I'm gonna make comics about it. I'm gonna write about it. I'm gonna blog about it. And so one day, my sister, who is I always say zoologist, but she yelled at me, so I'm gonna say an animal biologist. No, behavioralist. I don't know. I'm gonna say zoologist again because I can never remember what that was. So she was studying hyenas in the Masai Mara, which is basically like where the Lion King takes place, but the other side of the border.
Hmm.
And she asked if I wanted to come meet her. We were going to travel around and climb Kilimanjaro together. So, so I said, sure. One thing, don't tell me anything. No spoilers. I said, just tell me what airport to fly to, what bus to get on, what stop to get off. That's all I want to know. And so I get on this bus and I realize, like, oh, I don't actually know. Is this a 1 hour bus ride? Is this a 3 day bus ride? I don't know. And it's one of those buses where like it's packed full of people. Like people got chicken, like they're carrying chickens on their heads that they went and picked up in the market,
Oh my
and
god.
like there's like people in full Maasai garb. There's like people in business suits. Like everyone's on this bus together, packed in, and it was like almost a full day of travel. We get out at the town she told me to get out, and it's literally like the size of a living room. Like there's a little like lemonade stand style shack where people charge their cell phones. There's like a stick people tie goats to sell. The restaurant is one of those, when there's construction, there's like one of those like wooden wheels they wrap cables around. They put one of them on its side, like you sit next to it, and that's the restaurant. They put food on it. The hotel was literally a cement box with a dirt floor and a bed and nothing else, no electricity. And I mean, it's a really, really cool tiny town. But I had, I had planned my travel so I'd have like a day to walk around before my sister got back. See the sights. And I'm like, oh, there's not much to see here. I saw it all as I got off the bus. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go for a walk. And I did. And what I did not know, because I did not research, you know, I thought I'm just gonna like see a new city, but the thing I should have learned was that this town was in the middle of the Masai Mara, which is a protected wildlife reserve, and it is illegal to when you go out with a professional licensed guide, it's illegal to put your hand out the window. And I went walking for about 12 hours, lost.
Oh my
I'm
god.
just taking a little stroll. I had my little camera with me, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna like make a little nature documentary. And I was out there like playing dead, trying to get the buzzards to come eat me. I pretended to be a gazelle and like walked up to him, was like eating grass to see how close I could get. I was watching like the little warthogs running around and singing Hakuna Matata to them. And then at one point, hours in, I found this dead giraffe. And there's lots of like little hyenas and foxes and birds picking at it. So I just went and sat and filmed them for a while with the camera. And like hyenas are walking up to me and like looking at me like, dude, what you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. But I mean, a hyena itself could have like chopped my leg off. But
Yeah.
I'm just watching them. They're cute. I sat there for like an hour, just chilled out with the hyenas, and then got up and I'm like, it's getting late. I should get back to that little town. And I leave the hyena carcass and I walk for about 2 hours, and then no, sorry, the giraffe carcass, and I walk for 2 hours, and then I see the giraffe again, and I'm like, oh no, let me try this way, and I walk for another 2 hours, and then I see the giraffe carcass again, and I'm like, I think I'm lost. Um, just kept on walking and walking. Eventually, I saw some electrical lines, and I'm like, okay, the electrical lines must go to the town because some people that's where people charge their cell phones. So if I follow that, I'll be able to find the town. But which way do I follow it? If one way is going to take me to town, the other is going to be a 3 day journey through the desert to the city. And luckily, I chose the right way.
Jesus.
I got back to the town like well after dark. It's pitch black. I'm like, and I see some lights in the distance. I run up there. I see the team of zoologists and my sister are all there freaking out. Like, this guy is missing. What's going on? And I'm like, they're all panicking and like figuring out a plan to find me. And I'm like, oh, what's up, guys? And they're like, what are you doing? Where were you? And I'm like, oh, I went for a walk. And they're like, did you cross the river? It's illegal to cross the river. I'm like, yeah, like 3 minutes into the trip. What are you talking about? They're like, and they explained to me how illegal what I had done was. And I told them the whole story. I told them about the giraffe carcass, and their faces go white. And they're like, Ryan, what time did you find that giraffe? And I told them what time, and they're like, Ryan, we track the animals. That's our job. We know where every animal is. The lions that killed that giraffe left like 3 minutes before you got there.
Oh my God.
So if I hadn't spent 3 minutes on the ground pretending to be dead so a buzzard would eat me, and I could film it, I would have gotten there as the lions were still hungry, and I would have been the giraffe. So yeah, and the next day she took me out in the car to show me the lions, and I saw them like rip a wildebeest apart with their jaws, and I'm like, oh yeah, I probably shouldn't have been walking around here. Huh?
Wow. We're not even 20 minutes into this show or 10 minutes into this show, and I'm just like captivated. This is why I do this show. Um,
Yeah,
oh my God, there's so many things that I could ask right now.
it's very
um,
dumb.
before we sort of explore the rest of your many near death experiences, um, because you're funnily enough, you're not even the first guest I've had on the show who's had multiple near death experiences. The
Okay.
last guy I had on the show, shout out to Guy Chingon, I asked him, like, I was like, do you think you're cursed or something? And he was just like, no, and he had like a pretty kind of like chill response to it. He's just
Yeah.
like, okay. Um, so I'll ask you the same question. Why do you think you've had so many near death experiences, and how do you think you keep surviving?
Well, I know exactly why. Like the me that grew up in Michigan in the U.S. like never would have like I did have that dumb experience of setting myself on fire, but I never planned on traveling the world. I was very, despite setting myself on fire, I was a very cautious, nerdy, like
Hmm.
don't want anything to go wrong kind of guy. I did as a kid, like all of our family vacations always ended up in disaster. So I had that in my blood of like something always went wrong, but like, not like I like at that time appreciate now I can appreciate those stories. But at the time I was like, everything's always going wrong. We're always being stuck in hurricanes or floods or something's going on. But my life plan was I want to be an animator. I'm going to move to LA. I'm going to work for Disney and just have a very simple do what they tell me to do life. But I graduated from animation school the year that the entire animation industry got laid off. And so I've just spent so much money on a degree that is completely useless to me.
Oh no.
And there are no jobs for what I want to do. And then on a whim, like I was complaining to a friend in Instant Messenger, and she's like, "Have you heard about this thing in Korea where they're so desperate for English teachers that they'll buy you a plane ticket, they'll get you an apartment, and pay you a bunch of money every month to teach kids that already know how to speak English?" And I'm like, "No, but I'm going to do it." And at like 4 a.m., I had a job, and I moved there, and at that point I'm still like, I'm moving to a new place. This is weird. Like I got to do as much research as possible. I don't want anything to go wrong. But then there was the visa trip. Um, in order to teach in Korea, you had to go to Japan to get your visa. which for some reason at that time they would always bring you out first, and you would like start teaching illegally until they like got around to sending you for your visa. And so they sent me to Japan, but since I'd already started teaching, they didn't want me to miss a day of classes. So they sent me on a holiday. And it did not occur to them that the Korean consulate is closed on Korean holidays. So I ended up stranded in Japan. And for various reasons, including, I had to miss my flight because I didn't have my visa yet. And I had just finished college and moved internationally and hadn't been paid yet. So I was broke. And I had exactly enough money for 24 hours in Japan, and I stuck there longer. And I also like was bad at the exchange rate, and like had spent like $30 to see Men in Black 2, and like that was supposed to be the money to sleep. And I completely ran out of money and ended up sleeping on a park bench in a typhoon because my plan was to sleep at the airport, and I found out that the airport closes at 10 p.m. and we're in the middle of a typhoon. And I'm like, the security guard's like, you get out. And I'm like, there's a typhoon, dude. Like trees are falling over. And he's like, I don't care. I got to go home. Get out. So
Wow.
I
So
walked out of
he's
the
pretty much just committed you to death right there. Is that, hey,
pretty much,
listen,
yeah,
like, not
yeah,
my problem.
yeah. And like, even if I had money to like get a taxi or something, like the airport's closed. There's nothing. And the airport's like in the middle of nowhere along a highway. So I'm just walking along the highway completely empty because everybody's like, there's a typhoon. We're not driving. And like, literally like the trees are going like that, and I'm like just I don't know what to do. And I also got the flu through all this, so I have the flu. I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm wet. Like I'm trying not to like blow into the freeway because the winds are so high. And eventually I come across a park, and it's full of like homeless people sleeping, and I'm like, if there were a better, safer place to sleep, they would be there. So I guess I'm just going to grab a bench. So I just lay down on a bench, and like I am just miserable, sick, angry, upset. And as I'm doing this, this little black kitten comes and lays on my chest. And I just started laughing hysterically. It was the funniest thing, just this hilarious experience. And I suddenly realized this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me, and I'm fine. Like I can laugh about this, and I'm gonna survive. And I did survive it. I just kept laughing hysterically the whole trip. When like the next day I finally got my visa, and the next day I tried to get on a flight, and all the flights are full because of uh, they're trying to rebook like 3 days worth of canceled flights, and I ended up stuck in Japan for over a week with no money. I found out that at that time Japan would not let you use international ATM cards, even if I did have any money in my account because I just spent it all. And like I was just I survived all of it, and I made a comic about it, and I've been telling the story since. And I realized like I'm a writer. Stories are my currency. So that experience made me realize that like I can survive unexpected things. So if unexpected things happen, that's great, and I can tell stories. I don't seek dangerous experiences, but because I seek new experiences and I'm very stupid, I mean, this was decades ago. I hope I've gotten a little more intelligent now, but especially, I'm still pretty stupid. But at that time, I was very, very stupid. Then that led me to a lot of near death experiences, and I survived them just because I don't freak out. Like when it happens, I'm thinking narratively. I'm thinking like, what's this going to be? Am I going to make it a comic? Am I going to make it a podcast? Am I going to make it a blog post? And like, and I look at it like, what would make I'm seeing like the wider picture of like what's the narrative endpoint of this? Like what am I gonna not that I'm like trying to make it a story, but like that's the way my brain sees it. So like seeing the big picture instead of panicking at what's happening in the moment helps me survive it.
Do you not think you're like cursed or something, or like there's some weird cosmic force at work, like, or is it just weird luck? Like,
I don't think it's a curse because I enjoy all of these experiences, and I love talking about them. So like it's just it's my own stupidity is all it is. I mean, like I said, our family vacations always like it was a notorious that like we would as a kid, I guess there was something there because we felt cursed because like we would go on a camping trip in the mountains and then there would be a hurricane. So it'd be like, you know what, we're gonna leave and go another place. And like so we decided, you know, we're gonna go to Colorado instead. And like my mother's like, there'll be no water there because I used to live in Colorado and there's been a drought ever since I left. And we got there and there was a flood. Like she hadn't been there in 30 years. And all of a sudden there's a flood. And then everywhere we went, some natural disaster happened. But we survived them all. So I think that also kind of led me to believe like I can survive this stuff. I'm used to it.
Let's file through some of these. You were thrown out of a moving train by the police in India. I'm sorry,
Yeah, I
what?
was. Um, so this is a story that like I said, when these happen, I'm like, I'm going to tell this story forever, make comics about it. And this is a story I'd told for like over a decade, and like it never really worked. And then all of a sudden, I'm on stage telling it, and halfway through telling the story, I realized, oh wait, I'm the bad guy of this story. That's why that's why no one ever laughs. Because they're like, does he know he's the bad guy? And once I leaned into that, people like all of a sudden people get the story, and I am better telling it. So, in my defense, I had just slept in Gandhi's house. Uh,
So you slept in Gandhi's
I slept
house.
in Gandhi's house. So I was traveling across India, and I
Wow.
was just waiting for a train, and I'm walking around, and I walk in, I'm see this like bunch of cool little buildings, and people are chanting, and I walk up, and they're like, "Oh, are you here to sleep in Gandhi's house?" And I'm like, "Am I what?" And they're like, is that not why you came here? Like, this is an ashram that Gandhi built. He built that house with his bare hands, and for $5 you can sleep in it." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sure to sleep in Gandhi's house. I didn't know that, but screw the train I'm waiting for. Rip up that ticket. Yeah, here's $5. I'll sleep in Gandhi's house." And like you literally get to sleep in there. They give you food. You get to talk to people who knew Gandhi. You get
Wow.
to like do meditation and uh, like read books about him, learn all this stuff. And so I did that for like a couple days, and I learned about like his theory of satyagraha, which is where if there's an unjust law, it's your duty to break it. And I leave thinking, you know what? I'm so inspired that I hope one day I see an injustice and I can do what's right, which is already the key that I'm the bad guy in the story because you should not walk up being like, man, I hope I see some injustice today. Um, but then I get on my train, and when I traveled in India, I always traveled in the third class car. There's first class, second class, third class, and first class is like really really fancy, like you get your own little bed and everything. Second class is just like you get a designated seat, and third class is like human Tetris, and the price difference is like $5.
Really?
But yes, but um I loved going in third class because like in first class you're literally like you're locked in your room alone. Third class you meet everyone. You become best friends. Like you share food. People are handing me their babies to hold when they go take a nap. We're laughing. Even if there's like three strangers sitting on my lap and like people lined up in the luggage racks and like someone like I'm sitting with this, someone's in my armpit because we're literally packed in like human Tetris. And like I loved that experience and I loved talking to people and all that stuff. So I'm in there, we're laughing, we're going for like an hour, 2 hours into the journey. It's like a 2 day trip, train trip I'm on to get back home where I lived. And all of a sudden when the train stops, two men in uniform get on the train and say, everybody get off. We're mailmen. um, Not cops, they're mailmen. And it turns out that these two mailmen, there's a mail car where they keep all the mail, but they've decided it's too hot. And they want to go in our car, uh, but it's illegal for anyone else to be on the car with the mail. Uh, they have two bags of mail, basically,
Right. Yeah.
like tiny amount of mail. But they're like, we want to sit in another car, and we're not going to kick out the people, the rich people that paid the extra $5. We're going to go to the poor car because nobody cares about them. Basically, is what I'm thinking at that point. And they're like, and everybody's like, whatever. They all get off the train, and uh, And I'm like, I don't understand what's going on. People explain it to me. And then they tell us to pack into the second class car, which is now it's bad for everybody because the second class car, they paid for their own seat, but now they're squeezed in. And also now we're squeezed in so bad. And since I'm dumb, like standing back some questions, I get shoved in last. So me and a bunch of people are literally like hanging out the doors of the train, moving train. I got like two fingers holding me on, dangling over like as we're speeding over rocks and stuff.
Oh my god.
Like, and I mean that's in India. People do that a lot. Like people always hang out the door, but there are so many of us because we're not supposed to be in this car that literally, like, I feel like I'm going to fall at any point. And the people are explaining to me what had all just been happening in Hindi, and I'm like, that doesn't sound right. That sounds like an injustice. Because of course, I'm an American, so to me, an injustice is bad customer service.
So you're like,
Um,
speak to the
yeah,
manager, please.
yes,
Like,
exactly. But I'm like, you know what Gandhi would do in this
oh my
situation?
god.
He'd do a satyagraha. He'd go back to his seat and he'd refuse to leave. I'm doing a satyagraha. Who's with me? And they're all like, no, no, we're not doing that. And I'm like, I'm doing one anyway. So the next time the train stops, I run back and I said, I'm going back to my old seat. And the mailmen are by the door. They see me coming. They're like, what? Why is this guy Terminator 2 running at us? And they slam the door shut and lock it. And I'm like, I'm going to the back door. And I run. And like, I have the advantage because the train's moving toward me. But also, I'm very fat and slow. So they still make it there first, lock the door. And then I'm like, I'm jumping through the window. And jump into the window. And I get stuck like we need to move. And they're like, you've got to get out of that window. And I'm like, I can't. I'm stuck. But also, I won't because Satyagraha. What? Eventually, I climb in and I take off my belt and I tie myself to the seat. And I'm like, Satyagraha. And they're like, okay, well, we're going to call the cops. And I'm like, do it, man. And they're like, this train will not leave until the train leaves. And they're just sitting there like, what is this guy doing? And the next train station, like next train station, we're calling the cops. And they didn't have a phone, so that literally meant they'd be like, cops, cops. And then this cop comes and he's like, what's going on? I'm like, yeah, I'm doing a satyagraha. And they're like, what? Just get out, dude. And then and then so I refuse to get out. The next train station, there's two cops. The next train station, there's four cops. The next train station, there's eight cops. And none of them can get me out until eventually we pull up to the next station. They stop the train. They turn off the engine. And the train station has been cleared.
Oh no.
And all of the cops of the city are lined up in a row with their like ready. It's a very small town, so that there's like eight cops. But they also have gotten all the security guards, random like railway workers, and they're all ready. Like if you've seen like Train to Busan, like that one where they're all like the cops is basically that. And as soon as the train stops, they all run in and start like grabbing me and trying to pull me. And I got my backpack wrapped around my legs, my arms around through like the bars. I'm tied with my belt, and I'm Satyaga. And eventually, they like rip off the belt. They start dragging me to the door. I put out my arms like this, like in an X, and I'm like holding onto the door, and they're trying to push me out. And then they're like, "We almost got them out. Get the train moving." And like the train starts moving, and then I won't move. And then the lead guy comes up and he's like, just let us find you another seat. And I'm like, it's not about the seat. It's about the principle of the thing. Of course, I'm not helping any of the people that are affected by this. I'm the only one getting what I want, even though I'm not. And he's like, I'll talk to the conductor. I'll let you sit up in the engine car. And I'm like, are you kidding? Like, I am standing up for what's right. I'm not going to go like give up just because it would be really, really cool to sit up front and watch him go choo choo. But it's just enough to make me just briefly think about how cool that would be. And I let go just enough that as the train is taking off, I let go and they just shove me out of the moving train.
Oh
I
no.
hit the, I've dropped my bag. I hit the concrete. I roll. They throw my backpack at me, hit me in the head with it.
Oh shit.
The train takes off. And I immediately just like get out my phone and text everyone I know, and I'm like, I just got thrown out of a moving train by the police doing Santiago. This is the best vacation ever.
Dude.
And then and then 20 years later, I'm like, oh wait, I was the bad guy.
Dude, I swear, if it hasn't been done already, like one day they're just gonna make a movie about your life, and it'll be the fucking craziest shit I think anyone's ever seen.
No,
Like, what the fuck, man?
no. It's, they're all so dumb though. They're all so dumb.
One time you tried to kayak across the ocean and stranded yourself on an island from the movie The Beach in Thailand. Again,
Yeah,
what?
I did do that. So I was volunteering in Thailand after the big tsunami that happened there a couple decades ago, and like I was working all day. Like we were kind of like digging up all the buildings that had fallen over and helping them rebuild. And one day we had a day off, and like the big touristy thing to do there was to go visit the beach where they filmed the Leonardo DiCaprio movie, The Beach. And I hadn't done it yet because I had quit my job and was volunteering for months. So like again, very broke. And the the taxi boat to go there was like $30, but a kayak was 10. If and I convinced a friend like let's get this $10 kayak. Of course, life vests were five, so that would have brought it up for two of us. That would have brought it up to 20. But we're like 10 though, so we didn't get the life vests. We just got the kayak. We did not tell the person we're renting the kayak from that we were going to kayak across the ocean to another island.
Oh my god.
And also, neither of us had ever kayaked before.
Oh my god.
But that's a $20 savings, so it was worth it in our minds.
Dude, have you
So we
never
just,
seen Castaway? Like, come on, man.
well, yeah. Well, I'll tell you what I had seen. I had seen The Beach,
Okay.
and I'm like, Leonardo DiCaprio swam it in the movie. Okay, so
Yeah, but
like
that's a movie.
WWLDD, what would Leonardo DiCaprio do? Like kayak should be fine. And yes, that was very much a movie. And it was not like that. It was kind of like uh, a couple of hours in, we realized, oh, it's not really that close. It's just a much bigger island. Like we get there and like it looked really looked like a tiny island. It's really close, but it was actually a larger island that's really far and looked smaller. So we're going and like this kayak is like in the air more often than it's touching the water because these giant waves, are just whipping us up in the air, and
Oh
we'd like
wow.
kind of fly for a bit and then land, and the boat would go upside down. We'd capsize. We'd like also neither of us could swim that well either.
Oh
So
no.
um, like we'd have to like swim down, like rescue each other and pull each other up and flip the boat over, and like I'm like so seasick. I'm like puking all over myself repeatedly. Like eventually, like every time I puked, like the boat would capsize again. Eventually, I realized if I just puked on myself, the next wave would come and wash me. So that got that worked out. But then we're we're at this for hours, and then in between us, it looks like we're close again because when you see nothing but water in an island, it's hard to judge because on a size island. And then we see this giant freighter ship pass halfway between us and the island, and it looks small. And we're like, "Oh no, we are much further than we thought." And then this freighter ship is going like that, and we're like, "If that freighter ship can't handle these waves, we're gonna die." But I'm still like, WWLDD. What would Leonardo DiCaprio do? He would keep going. And we'd capsized so many times, but eventually we made it to this island. But we crashed on the wrong side of the island. The island's like shaped like a horseshoe. In the movie, they CGI'd in this little gap, so it looks like it's like in a like cup, but it's like that. And we landed in the back, and then we're like, "Screw the kayak, leave it there. I'll buy him a new one. I don't have any money. I'll figure it out. I'm not going back out in the water." And we have to figure out how to get around the island. So we're just kind of shimmying. It's like the island is like the wall goes straight. It's like a rock wall that goes straight up, but then like at the bottom, the waves have cut like this indentation into it, and we're shimmying along this indentation, and it's like covered in these giant crabs. Like if you go to the restaurant, they got the king crabs. Like they're like bigger than them, and they're all these bright neon colors. They've like never seen humans before, so they're like crawling on this wall, looking at us like, "Who are these dudes?" And we're just shimmying, and then the tide starts coming in, and it starts moving up our bodies, and we realize like we're under this rock wall, and the water's coming up. If we don't shimmy faster, we're just gonna drown. We've left our kayak, so we're just shimmying as fast as we can. The sun is going down. It's getting dark, and then we get to the corner. We see the beach. We're almost there, but then there's this little like extra cave cut out where there's like a platform. It's like a looks like a Mario level where there's two platforms, and the middle is cut out, and there's this like the waves come in and they do this like they like make this little circular swirl. But like if you were caught in the middle, it would literally just slam your head into a rock and then just keep spinning you around like you're in a washing machine, hitting rocks the whole way. But I'm like, we can time it. Like
Oh my
it's
god,
like
dude, come on.
happens. Then there's like 10 seconds in between, and then it happens again. So I'm like, you just wait for that 10 seconds. And so like we've also like I've lost my glasses in these waves. I've lost my shoes, and so I watch it. It does a thing. I jump and I make it. I do land on like very sharp rocks, and I don't have any shoes. It's very painful. But then I'm like to my friend Bez, I'm like, see Bez, you can do it. It's your turn. Just time it. Okay, ready, go. And he does the jump at the right time, but he doesn't jump far enough, and he lands in the water.
Yeah.
But so he's not at the point where it's going to slam him into the rock. He lands below, but now he's in the place where it's just gurgling him around like a washing machine. And he's like, save me. And I'm like, I'm up at the point where you hit the rock. Like I can't. If I reach down, it's gonna slam me in the rock. You just got to swim out. And he's like, save me. I'm like, dude, you just go sideways. And eventually he gets out, and then I jump down the other side, and we're walking along the rocks. We finally make it. It is now pitch black dark. We cannot see the island we came to see, and the last taxi boat of the day is leaving. And we're like, stop, 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 save us! And we're like, we're so glad we caught you. And he's like, yeah, like I already have tourists that paid me. Like you can't get in my boat. And we're like, this isn't like there's nothing on this island. It's just nature. And we're like, we'll be stuck here all night. And he's like, yeah. And we're like, please, we'll pay. What do we have to pay you? And he tells us like I forget what it was, but it was far more than we would have spent on the taxi boat to begin with. And then we're like, oh, also, can you rescue our kayak that we left over there? And he's like, that's going to cost you extra. And so
Oh
he does
no.
that. He like has to chase it down. It's floating away. Gets us back. The taxi place or the kayak rental place is closed. So we have to keep it out to the next day. We're renting this thing hourly, so we keep it all night. Also, since we abandoned it and it got scratched up against rocks, it's totally destroyed. Uh, Basically, in order to save $20, we spent hundreds of dollars, almost died, horribly injured ourselves, lost our shoes, lost our glasses, and but we survived, and we got to see the beach from the beach.
But like 5 minutes?
Yeah,
What
about
the
30 seconds, I'd say, and we saw like vague shapes, vague silhouettes,
Yeah,
I'd
because you
say.
couldn't see anything as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mad.
So,
Okay. You once were sucked into a riptide in Costa Rica. Tell me
yeah.
about that experience.
So I lived in Costa Rica for a while. Like when I first started traveling, I'm like I can get jobs overseas and work, but eventually I liked it so much that I'm just like I would just like see a video of a sloth on YouTube and be like, oh, that's fun. I'll move to Costa Rica. Because like I work to the internet, I can live wherever I want, and I like couldn't afford to live in America. But in Costa Rica, like I went deep in the jungle and I got like my own private beach house for $100 a month, like two-story, amazing beach house, and like problem like it's in the middle of nowhere. It's so remote that like if I wanted to buy bread, it was a 12-hour trip. I There's a bus at 6 a.m. It comes back at 6 p.m. and I had to do my shopping in Panama, whole other country, because I'm in a place called Zancudo Beach, and it's like this little peninsula that just my nearest neighbor was like a 30-minute walk, but I have my private beach, and everybody tells me just watch out for riptides, and I'm like, I definitely will. And I go swimming, and I get caught in a riptide, and I'm like, found one, and I realized what they meant by watch for the riptides was figure out what you're supposed to do when you're in one. I didn't do that. I just watched out for them, and I saw it, and I'm like, crap, I don't know what to do now. So I'm just sucked out deep out in the ocean. Like I can barely see my house immediately. Like sucked way out, and I'm just like, I guess I got to figure this out. So I just start like swimming against the riptide toward my house, and that's of course doing nothing. Like even if I was a good swimmer, like I couldn't go fast enough to outrun that riptide. But I figured out that like I can't pull the water, but I can swim down to the bottom and stick my hands in the mud and pull myself forward. And so I'd like do that until I ran out of breath, go up, and it pulled me back, but not as far as I was before. So I'm getting like a few inches towards my house each time, which is absolutely nothing. My house is a speck in the distance, and I did that for a while. And I get up and I'm like, yeah, I'm just probably gonna die here. And weirdly, my first thought as I realize I'm gonna die is, crap, I didn't hit save on the file I was working on. I was making a comeback. I don't know, but I'm like, and immediately I'm like, wait, you're gonna die anyway. Who's gonna post it? And I'm like, well, eventually, like my family's gonna my computer, and like they might post my last comic to Twitter. But like I didn't save it, and the electricity goes out all the time. So electricity goes out, my computer's gonna die. It's gonna lose the file. And I'm just
Priorities, dude.
that's where my mind is. And then I'm like, and then eventually, like as I'm doing this, I just kind of move a little bit to the left, and I realized, oh, that's what you're supposed to do in a riptide. Just move the other way because they're like a straight line. So don't go against it. Just move like to the left or right where there's not a riptide, and then you're fine. So I just kind of, uh, by accident, got out of the riptide, and then like just had to swim like an hour to get back to my house, and then like uh, yeah, I mean it's not that easy. You can still be in horrible danger, but I just happened to accidentally swim into the exact place where I was safe. And I if I hadn't accidentally done that, I would have just gone deep out into the ocean. Maybe got eaten by a shark.
Well, I'm glad you're still alive.
Yeah,
Thank God for
survived though.
that. Let
Yeah,
me. I think what I'm still amazed by as well. Like I know you mentioned it earlier about sort of having this kind of narrative mindset whenever you're in these experiences, but like when it's beginning to happen, do you just kind of think to yourself like, "Oh, here we go again."
yeah.
Like,
Basically, my brain has lost the ability to like panic or get stressed out about these situations. I'm just like I look at it like I'm watching a movie and be like, oh, we're getting to an interesting part. Like that's what my brain does. And so uh the good thing is that gives me like the space to um critically look at the situation as opposed to
mm.
panicking. But also I'm stupid, so that doesn't help. Because
I don't know, man. It sounds like you're pretty smart when push comes to shove.
well,
I mean, being able
no,
to remain calm like
yeah.
that. I mean, I imagine that's probably the biggest thing saving your life each and every time. Because obviously, you panic, you get emotional, you can't think, and then that could be the difference
Mm,
between life and death. But
yeah.
you know what I mean,
Yeah, I'd like to think that now that I've been like it's been a while since I've had one of these horrible near death experiences. I just like I've been through enough of them that like I know how to avoid them better and how to get out of them better. That like but yeah, all these stories are like in my like 20s. I think is when I got into the most of these dangerous scrapes. But luckily, I survived them all by sheer dumb luck, and then now I think I'd be better at it.
we've got one final one. So you were caught in the middle of a coca war in Peru.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, after everything I've heard, like, I'm not really surprised. Like, how did this happen? What the, like, how are you still
Yeah.
here?
Well, this is when my wife started traveling with me, um, and we were traveling around South America, and we wanted to go on the Amazon River, and the Amazon to get to where you start on the Amazon River. It's like it's actually explain. There's like one road that goes there, and it takes a long time. There's like nothing else there, and you take a bus. It takes like 10 hours, something like that, and you go through the mountains until you get there. And we had a direct bus, but halfway through, my wife was getting really, really like sick, like bus sick, uh,
Mm.
just really, really feeling bad. And I'm like, you know what? Why don't we get off the bus and stop for the night and get another bus in the morning? And so we stopped like halfway in this lovely little town, took a nap. And what we didn't realize is that while we were sleeping, uh, all hell broke loose because there was a new president, and he had announced he's going to try and cut down on the coca trade because coca is legal there. There's like everywhere you go, there's like coca shampoo, there's coca snacks, there's coca. People just eat coca leaves as medicine, and of course they export it. Like Coca Cola is still made with it, but they have special permission to import it. It is anywhere else if you try to carry coca leaves, like you go to prison. Uh, Coca is not a drug, but it's used to make drugs. So like but it's I always say it's like hops. Like if you eat hops, you're not going to get high, but like it's used to make beer. So the the president had said all these people are legally making coca, but they're making more than the legal use. Than I know they're making more than is being legally used, and they're like selling it to cocaine manufacturers. So we're going to come up and all you farmers, we're going to destroy half your crops. And the farmers said, no, we're fighting back. And they had the support of the people who they sell the extra coca to. And they got some weapons, they got some power. And so the bit that we would have safely passed by on that bus, but didn't, that's where it all went down. And like the president declared martial law. He brought in tanks. The citizens, like, they set up roadblocks. They put up like giant concrete barriers and set them on fire. And the police just went in there with like machine guns and like arrested everybody. And like there's shooting, there's fires, there's like they just arrested everybody they saw there. Um, and then like other people are in hiding, and they cleared it all out. We have no idea. We're sleeping safely in our hotel. Like Obama, this all this had gone down, like it had been so big that like we found out later Obama had done his press conference about it going on. We're just snoozing. We get up in the morning, we go to the bus station. We're like, yeah, we're gonna book that second half of our trip. They're like, no buses today. We're like, what do you mean there's no buses? Like, no buses going that way. I'm like, it's one road. There's only one place to go. How can there be no buses going that way? But nobody will tell us. So like, I'll
Oh.
tell you what, you can't get a bus, but maybe there's a place down the road that has a van. Maybe he'll take you. And so we go get this van, and he's like, I can only take you halfway. And then he takes us halfway, and then they're like, there's a car that can take you halfway. So like each little bit starts getting longer, but also each of these modes of transportation is the price of what was supposed to be the entire trip. And it's exponentially getting shorter and shorter because everyone's afraid to go any further until eventually we're in like a little tuk-tuk, like one of those little things that's like a lawnmower engine on wheels, and for just like three people. And so we're there with this random woman, and then all of a sudden, like, and we keep asking, like, what is going on? Why will no one take us any further? And they're like, I don't want to talk about it. And then this guy in a tuk-tuk's taking us until he gets to like, he stops at a certain point, and he looks really scared, and he's like, I can't take you any further. And I'm like, all right, well, what's the, like, this is the smallest vehicle I've ever been in. What's the next one going to be? And he's like, there's nothing else. You have to walk. And we're like, what is going on? He will not tell us. And we just get out and we start walking. And then I start realizing, like, I see those concrete barriers. I see the bullet holes. I see the scorch marks. I see where things have been on fire. And then, like, all of a sudden, this, like, military truck, like, with full of soldiers with, like, M16s goes flying by us. And we're like, something happened here. And then, like, we're just walking nervously. And then on the other side, we walk through that for a while. On the other side, there's another little mini taxi. We ask him, "Can you get us there?" And then, like he takes it. No, he takes us for a bit, and then all of a sudden he stops, and he all of a sudden quotes us. He's like, "This is dangerous. You have to pay extra." And it was like even more than the entire trip was supposed to be. And I realized I've given so many. It's supposed to be $20, and I've given so many people $20.
Yeah.
I'm now out of money. It's not like you can give a card to a dude in a lawnmower engine. I had like a last $20 in my sock, but now it's like 40. And I'm like, I literally don't have the money to pay this dude. And I tell him, you can't say that after we were in your car, sir. I'm going to give you $20. And that's all we got. And he's screaming at us. So we just run. And he's afraid to come after us because like the cocaine manufacturers have been like, nobody passes through. And so like, he's afraid to come follow. And we just run and run and run. And then we eventually we got to the town and Googled and found out all this had happened. And I'm like, if one person had just said, "Hey, there's a coca war there," and uh, and a drug cartel has said no one's allowed to pass, we would have waited a day. Like, why won't you just tell us? But we survived it. We got there. We did our trip, and it was lovely. We did a little Amazon tour, like the kind, like not like on a big boat, literally just a canoe, and like a local guy takes us out, and that was also a near death experience because like he's just showing us like taking us out. He went fishing for piranha, and then he's like, "Who wants to go swimming with a piranha?" And I decided to go. I At that time I was also doing like a YouTube series where people give me challenges, and someone had said go skinny dipping in the Amazon, and I'm like, what if I go skinny dipping with piranha? So I went skinny dipping with a piranha, and they don't bite you; they just swam around. It was lovely. And then,
But
but then
is that a
later,
myth then? Because I've
what?
is that a complete myth that piranhas do that, or is there
Well,
some?
like
Is it a different varieties that will
no,
or
they
won't?
he'll throw a bit of meat in the water, and they'll like swarm it, eat it. But like a living human, they're not gonna bother. Like,
Huh,
um,
interesting.
you're too big. Supposedly that's what he said, and I survived it, so I guess it's fine. But also later he took us to that exact spot and started feeding the crocodiles. And I'm like, you didn't tell us there were crocodiles there. He's like, oh, they were sleeping. I'm like, yeah, there. Like I could have kicked one in the face. Like, what are you doing? And yeah, like he just took us out, and we like when you have a local guide, like you trust him and all these things we did, and then like you find out that he's kind of I don't know. Well, after the trip was over, he took us to his house, and we learned that he taught all of his babies to smoke because his witch doctor told him it's good for him and it chases away ghosts. And we're like, this is who we trusted with our lives to swim with piranhas and crocodiles. We're sitting there. He has like a 10-year old, an 8-year old, a 6-year old, a 4-year old, a 2-year old. 2-year old sitting there like dragging on a cigarette, and he's like, "Yeah, my witch doctor said it's good for him. It chases away evil spirits." And we're like, "That's I don't know about that guy. I don't know about how much we trusted you with our lives."
Oh my god. I feel like we barely scratched the surface, but it's been an hour already, and
Yeah.
we've sort of gone in every which crazy way I can imagine. And yeah, as I said, we barely touched the surface with you, and I'm so glad that you're gonna be on the show again, and we're gonna then just go through your crazy and wacky life. That guys, if you thought that this episode was good, just wait until you discover everything about Ryan's life. It's just as I said before, it might be the most interesting person I've ever interviewed. It's kind of mind blowing. Thank you so much for your time. I really, really sincerely appreciate
Of
it.
course.
And see you in the next episode.
See you then.
And to all my listeners of the Christian Reeve podcast, thank you for listening. Be safe, be well, and I'll see you in the next one.